August 27th, 1900. A ship east of the Windward Islands detects a tropical cyclone, the first of the season. August 30th. The storm steadily progresses northwest, entering the Caribbean. September 2nd. The tropical storm lands in the Dominican Republic. The next day, it would make its way into modern-day Cuba. September 6th. After gaining momentum in the Gulf of Mexico, the storm gains enough strength to officially classify as a hurricane. September 8th. The hurricane reaches peak strength and is now a higher Category 4 hurricane with sustained wind speeds of up to 145 miles per hour. The storm would hit just south of Houston, Texas the next day. It would quickly weaken after hitting landfall in the mainland in the U.S. and turn extratropical over Iowa on September 11th. As it traveled over the Midwest, it would strengthen once more and rage over the U.S. into eastern Canada. After striking Newfoundland on September 13th, it would finally start to weaken once again. A few days later, on September 15th, the storm would finally peter out near Iceland. As of the 2024 season, Hurricane Galveston is the fourth deadliest Atlantic hurricane in recorded history. The total damages from the hurricane would be $34 million in the U.S. and $1.35 million in Canada, mainly from crops in Ontario. A combined total of over $1.8 billion in today's money. In Canada alone, it caused 52 confirmed deaths. Some speculate that it may have caused even more, with estimates going as high as 230. These deaths were mostly due to sunken vessels near Newfoundland and St. Pierre. All areas affected by the storm would see varying levels of damage, including damage to buildings, downed communication lines, and deaths. However, none faced worse damage than that of Galveston, Texas, of which the storm is named after. Galveston, this once Wall Street of the South, is a city on the small island off the coast of Texas. The highest point of Galveston is less than 9 feet above sea level and more than 6 feet under the storm surge. Starting in the early morning, the city began to flood. This flooding would continue without stopping or slowing throughout the day. In fact, the flooding would only become more rapid, with some eyewitness accounts stating that the flooding waters rose 4 feet in 4 seconds at its most rapid at approximately 7:30 p.m. Just an hour later, the storm waters would rise an additional 5 feet. Flood water would only continue to rise to a height of 15.7 feet above sea level. Along with the flooding, Galveston saw 9 inches of precipitation and measured wind speeds up to 100 miles per hour, at which point the
Weather Bureau's anemometer
was blown away. However, survivors report observing its heavy objects such as bricks becoming airborne, indicating that wind speeds were likely stronger. It is estimated that the actual highest wind speed was closer to 140 miles per hour. Every road in the town suffered some amount of damage, with many being blocked by water and debris, making travel for emergency services difficult in the best case and absolutely impossible in some areas. The only bridge connecting the island to the mainland was destroyed, along with 15 miles of railroad. Electrical, telegraph, and phone wires were downed. Every single building in Galveston was damaged or destroyed. Every home, every hospital, every government office, every business, every school, every place of refuge. Even buildings built to withstand hurricanes did not escape unscathed, with many of them too being destroyed. With little communication and being all but completely cut off from the outside world, with almost all travel within and to the city halted, with the main route to the city from the mainland cut off, this was a worst-case scenario for the citizens of Galveston. Stories from survivors are absolutely harrowing. During the storm, St. Mary's Orphans Asylum was occupied by 93 children and 10 sisters. As tides began to approach the orphanage, the sisters moved the children into the girls' dorm, as it was newer and sturdier. The sisters had the children repeatedly sing a hymn called Queen of the Waves throughout the ordeal in order to help calm them. As the sisters realized that the collapse of the building was imminent, they tied themselves to 6 to 8 children each using a clothesline. All throughout the storm and right up until the building was collapsing, the sisters did their best to show bravery to the children and to rescue refugees from the water as they floated past. Eventually, the dormitory building that had been the sanctuary for the children and sisters was lifted from its foundation. The bottom fell out. The roof came crashing down, trapping those inside. Only 3 boys from the orphanage survived: William Murney, Frank Madeira, and Albert Campbell. None of the sisters survived. There are thousands of people who have lost their lives here. I'm the only member of my family that was saved. The only reason that I am saved is that my house, the second floor, separated from the first floor, and I crawled up into the attic of our house, and that section of the house floated on the debris of other houses that had gone down. I stayed up in the attic until the water had subsided. Then I crawled off the debris and got back onto the ground, and here I am. I remember the mayor coming in the next morning. He said to my father, "John, your whole family are destroyed." I remember that's the first time I ever saw Father with tears in his eyes. He had no idea the extent of the damage. "We hadn't left the house yet," he said. "Well, I'll get out there right away." I think it took him 2 or 3 hours walking over wreckage and things to get to the old home. There he found Aunt Lily and Aunt Rebecca and their children. 11 in all in the old home just completely collapsed and destroyed. Out of a population of around 38,000, 10,000 people were left homeless. The area of destruction was approximately 1,900 acres. A mountain of debris gathered in the middle of the island, measuring 3 miles across and 3 stories high. According to 1901 estimates, $17 million worth of damage was done, about $650 million today. Shortly after the storm, Farabee, one of Galveston's few ships to survive the storm, set sail to Texas City with messengers hoping to bring aid to the survivors as quickly as possible. While those in the mainland Texas already knew that Galveston had been hit and were preparing to send aid, they were not ready for the sheer and utter destruction the storm had wrought. The messengers estimated the death toll to be 500, a number thought to be an exaggeration by the mainland, but they soon found out that even 500 was far too low. It was later determined that around 6,000 people lost their lives, though some speculate the number to be as high as 12,000. 6,000 out of 38,000. More than 1 out of every 7 citizens were killed. Some of those had survived the crashing waves and flying debris, but were trapped for days under wreckage, unable to be rescued in time. Rescuers reported that all around, they could hear the screams and pleas of those trapped beneath the wreckage as they desperately tried to save as many people as they could. Because of the underpreparedness of the rescuers, the lack of fast transportation and communication, and limitation of technology or resources at the time, Hurricane Galveston remains to this day the deadliest natural disaster in American history. The dead were so numerous that they were not given proper burials, nor, in most cases, even identified. After a failed attempt at burial at sea, funeral pyres were set up on the beach, and anywhere large numbers of dead were found to burn bodies. These fires burned 24/7 for several weeks. Thousands of survivors left for the mainland, their homes and home city now being completely obliterated. However, for thousands more, moving was not an option. These people were given surplus U.S. Army tents to live in temporarily. So numerous were these tents that they were called the White City on the beach. However, rebuilding efforts would begin almost immediately. Mere days after the disaster, Galveston received its first post-storm mail, filled with relief supplies and donations. Utilities weren't far behind. By September 13th, basic water service was restored, and Western Union began providing minimal telegraph service. 3 weeks post-storm, cotton was once again being exported. After word of the disaster spread, donations of the rebuilding and relief efforts came flooding in all over the world, coming to over $1.5 million in less than a week. By March of the following year, over 2,000 homes were built or repaired. In the years to follow, Galveston would build a 10-mile-long seawall and raise the city as much as 17 feet in some areas, using approximately 15 million cubic yards of sand. Since these improvements, Galveston has had many opportunities to test their effectiveness, including a hurricane in 1915 of similar strength and path to the Great Galveston Hurricane. While there was extensive damage and 53 confirmed deaths, This was a great reduction for the thousands of deaths experienced in just a decade previously. However, what would wear more on these walls than storms would be time, with Hurricane Ike in 2008 causing over $2 billion worth of damage, prompting proposals for improvements to the then century-old wall. Today, Galveston still survives and thrives in part due to touristry centered around the Great Storm. However, it has yet to regain its Wall Street of the South status it had before the storm caused investors to flee to the mainland, seeing Galveston as too risky of an area to invest in. Due to climate change, hurricanes are getting stronger. They are also happening more in areas which used to be considered at least relatively safe from hurricanes. It is only a matter of time before another storm like Galveston hits some of these less prepared areas. Let's hope that Galveston's record continues to hold.